Yeah, a sister from who lived in India and studied under Osho for 27 years.
Okay.
Did a 3-day workshop, and so we did a lot of stuff. But my question is, that those practices are good for singles to raise their level of consciousness.
Yeah.
We did stuff. We did stuff.
Single and together. It could be both.
Now, as she didn't go over what people can do for couples, because that's for another workshop.
Now, we just talking sex or tantric in general?
In general.
Okay.
So, what can couples do either before sex or as in a relationship to deepen their connection if they're using tantra?
Okay. Well, there's a couple of things. Yeah, as a couple, you're asking first, correct? What can couples do first? Okay. One thing is practice some of the preliminary techniques before the actual sexual complete union of orgasm. Meaning, what I mean by that is this. We know when the longer the man retains the sperm, the more potent it becomes. So in the modern day, where they'll call it foreplay, right? Practice a lot of those basic arousal techniques, working with certain parts of the body that stimulate the heightened energy centers. Because first, when you back it up even more basic than that, preliminary techniques, sit down and discuss what is your purpose and intent. If you're gonna come together to create a magical working by way of tantric sex, sit down first and make sure you're both on the same page of what it is you're trying to accomplish. That's key. So, say for an example, you're trying to heighten your spiritual, your intellectual abilities as a couple. That would be the intent. So you both want to make sure as you get to that point of climax or orgasm that you're both visualizing and focusing on that mentally at the time of orgasm. So you need to pre-plan and discuss what is it you're trying to accomplish. That's number one. I find, and I can only speak on my own personal experiences. I find, again, what they term foreplay, the more you can draw that out and work with different aspects of the anatomy. She needs to know the aspects of your penis and certain parts, where to stimulate it, how to build the sperm up, and you need to discipline yourself on how to retain it before you release it. You understand? Now, also make sure you haven't ejaculated too much prior to doing that ritual, because the more ejaculation, the less potent the sperm is. Do you understand? Now, this might sound crazy. I don't know if they went over that in this. Actually absorbing, and again, we're adults. We're talking like adults here. I told you we were going to talk about some shit tonight. It may not be the norm, but this is what dealing with magic is. Ingesting each other's fluids also ignites the magical working of that ritual. Okay? Now, that's important too. So that's if that's how you plan that specific tantric ritual. So one, you need to sit down and discuss how you're going to do it, why you're going to do it. That's number one. But I find the best preliminary things you can do as a couple is to build up the power of the sperm, practice a lot of the foreplay stimulation techniques prior to getting into the actual act. Now, the longer you can stay with it, 30 minutes, an hour, the better. You understand? Because when it gets to that final part, you're gonna find out. You can be at the point of orgasm where you see all, because you got to understand this. When the male is ejaculating, right? What happens is, we know the seminal fluid goes up all the chakras. The crown chakra opens. So you open yourself up to whole light beings when you're ejaculating. And you're going to find out when the woman is receptive and receiving that, okay? This is also how a female gets impregnated. When you talk about beings of light and energy, you open yourself up, you can orgasm for 20 seconds, as quick as it is, but you can live an experience in that 20 seconds that appear to you to be an hour, 2 hours. You can see flashes of your life, certain points. You could see experiences. I mean, I can go on and on and on and on and on. And again, I can only speak on personal experience. I can't speak on anybody else's experience or your experience. So, and I'm sure you have your own personal experiences too. But those are the best preliminary techniques that I find are effective. Now, some people can't do that. Stimulating the women's clitoris for long periods of time. Knowing the art of oral sex. That's very important in dealing with tantric. We're adults here. We're not kids. You know, I don't understand how men and women, like, they're still. Remember when we were young and I don't do that. Come on. Well, if you're not doing it, somebody else is going to be doing it. I guarantee you that. That's a fact. You understand? Understanding that, because when you go back into ancient Egypt and you go back into, like you say, the Dravidians, you'll find on the walls and in the text, this was a sacred art and science that we practice. It was a high spiritual science. And it's, unfortunately, in some circles of consciousness, sex is taboo. It's not talked about openly, as if it's not a part of spirituality. If we don't talk about these things and we don't get it out in the open and we don't experience them, we become consumed by them. Because some people are controlled by the sex force. They have no discipline. Because they just randomly have sex, but they can't identify why they're having sex. When it's done just out of pure lust and there hasn't been identification, you can lust after somebody, but did you communicate what that lust was for? You understand? If it's just out of raw lust to ejaculate, you understand, with no intent behind it, now you might lust after somebody because they're carrying a certain spiritual energy that you want to merge with that spiritual energy. That's a different. But if you're just lusting after somebody because they have a physical body that's attractive to you and you just want them as a male, then that's pure lust. You become consumed by the sex force where you're not controlling it. Now, if you're not controlling it, you become consumed by it, which means this. If you don't also discuss with your partner, another great preliminary technique, you need to discuss every desire and fantasy that you have. Because if you don't, you might find out, as I said before in the past, there might be some things that you might think she might not like, and she might like them too, but you just never talk to her about them. So know what limit you can take it to. It could be bizarre stuff that might appear bizarre. You might like your toes licked. I don't know, whatever. You might like to eat peanut butter sandwiches or while you're having sex. It might be bizarre to you, but there's something in that that's carrying a spiritual energy that you need to tap into. So if you learn to appease your desires and not be controlled by them, you'll find it's a great heightened experience. Go with it. So talk to your partner. Now, not saying your partner's going to agree with everything. So then you got to come to a agreement. So it doesn't mean because that's something you like, they're going to like it. But you're never going to know unless you talk about it. So you're going to find there might be things that you both like. There's probably going to be things that you like, she don't, vice versa. So then you got to find that common ground in between. This is the keys to a successful relationship. But if you're just having sex on a mundane level where it's mundane and you just do it, oh, it's time to have sex. We haven't had sex in a couple of days or a week. Let's just have sex. It's boring. Go ahead.
What about homo and lesbian?
Say it again.
Homosexual and lesbianism.
That's a touchy topic. Okay. Now, I'll get into it a little bit, but that's a class in itself. When you go back to ancient cultures, homosexuals were guardians of the gateways to the spiritual realms. That's why they're so abhorred in African cultures. And they're so quick to want to condemn them and kill them.
That's interesting.
Do the research. Now, I know there's going to be many other scholars out there. I've heard them all.
Yeah, like in
they condone homosexuality.
In Voodooism, there's a lot. They're in Haiti, like that's the only place where they're safe, actually.
Correct.
They're priestesses and things of that nature.
That's because they're guardians of these gateways to these higher gatekeepers.
Interesting.
Now, that's on a spiritual level. Now, on the physical aspect, on the moral level, see, people teach about the morality of homosexuality. Now, if you have your own personal moral standards on it, that's different. But if you want the spiritual explanation, people always break it down from a moral, so it's condemned. Now, I can only tell you my stance on it. I don't discriminate against homosexuals, but I'm not in agreement with it. That's just my stance. And I don't say that from a hate perspective. I don't hate a homosexual. I just don't agree with the principalities of it. But then I could be a hypocrite because I have nothing against female lesbians. Because I've been in that situation with a male and two female lesbians in the same. So that's my realm. That's my reality. I can't speak for anybody else. You understand? I'd be a hypocrite if I did. But I'm not afraid to take a stance. See, people don't want to take a stance. Instead of being right, the question is, where do you stand on it is a different thing. So people teach on the morality of homosexuality. I don't hate or discriminate against anybody that's homosexual. But from a male perspective, I do not agree with two men engaging in sex, because from a scientific perspective, it doesn't serve a purpose. Then you can say, well, that's hypocritical because you agree with two females. Well, there's a higher science to two females when you go back into other I don't want to get into that all now because that's a whole other class. You understand? Now you might say, that sounds hypocritical. I can only explain it on my experience. Now, somebody else in this room might have a whole different perspective on that. Another scholar, teacher, elder, or anybody in this room, and you're entitled to that. And guess what? Neither of it is right, and neither of it is wrong. It's you creating your own reality. See, that's where the topic comes. Most people condemn homosexuality based on religious context. Well, the Bible says. Well, the story of the land of Nod was not about homosexuality. Go read it closely. Religious people are wrong when they use the Bible to condemn homosexuality. Then they'll go to the book of Paul. Well, it says in the book of Paul, yeah, but that was afterwards. We understand man shall not lie down with man. In the Torah it says same gender shall not lie down with the same gender. All right. It's there. I see that there. But the point is, when we're talking about homosexualities, hermaphrodites, androgyny, you can get a religious person and say, well, if it says we're all created in the image and likeness of the Creator, then whose image and likeness are those people created in? Now you're stuck like Chuck, and you can't get out of that one. So when we bypass all the morality of it, because morality is personal. Morals are personal. Everybody has their own morals. You understand? You can't give an answer to a question on that based on morals alone, because it's personal. Because then you have to leave your personal opinion, and now you have to deal with the issues at hand. Okay? Anybody else? Any other questions?
So they were gatekeepers of the spirit realm?
In certain African cultures, they were gatekeepers to the spiritual realm, yes.
Is there a reason for how is that so?
Because of the androgynous beings. Androgynous beings,
They're the first beings on the
right, and they possessed both aspects of male and feminine.
Female energy.
That's it. So they were the gatekeepers. They had higher spiritual senses. They were more in tune spiritually because of that. That's all. So then, like the sister said,
Not in America. Not the homosexuals in America.
well, no, now I'm not.
Tap into it.
I'm not gonna lie. There's some that they're out there. I'm not gonna lie. But again, it's personal.
Unknown.
It's personal. You can't see when you become religious when you start defining it and putting it in a box. You can't do that. Because then, if you get on that note, you're stuck like Chuck, because I can trap you 8 different ways with that. You understand? So you heard me, and I'm not playing the fence on it. I don't agree with it, but I don't discriminate against them, and it does not affect their spirituality. A homosexual can reach the same levels of consciousness that a non-homosexual can. That's a scientific fact. And how do I know? I've seen it. Okay? So you can sit there and say, well, they're cursed and they're this or that. There's some homosexuals that are more spiritually in tune than some non-homosexuals. That's a fact. You don't have to accept that. You don't have to like it. You don't have to agree with it. What you like and agree with is irrelevant. That's not what the divine reality and truth is about. Truth is truth. And sometimes some truths you're not going to like. It's not about what you like and dislike. That's why, see, as I've gotten older, and I'm going to be 45 next month, June 10th. As I've gotten older, I've learned this one principle, and it's helped me tremendously on my spiritual path. Okay? I couldn't care. It's not about being liked. I'm not interested in who likes or hates me, because that's human, mundane garbage. My job is just to teach information. You do with it what you want. I couldn't care if you like me or love me, hate me, think about me, don't think about me. That's not my job. That's why if you look at my YouTube videos, I disable all the comments. I don't allow commentary on it, because people get on YouTube because they want to show people how much they know, and they want to get into back and forth debate. I don't do it for that. I do it just to present information. I disable the comments. I don't get into debates. Now you know, and I know you know me for a long time, and you know I can stand and debate with anybody, and I know I can. But I just feel like we're at a path in our spirituality where now we have to bypass the ignorance, and we have to now present the information, and it's up to you to do what you want to do with the information. So I don't get into that no more. That's all human emotional stuff that takes you down. Anybody else?
Yeah, what about tantric sex, right? With